Here's the other thing to say. Let's go on the side of those owners. When you sign Hooney, post Echo Fox, you're just signalling to the scene. You think you're signalling, I've signed a real big player and he's been one of the best and an MVP level player. Look at my org, my explosives. No, that's what you think you're signalling. You're actually counter-signalling to everyone who knows the space that you're a casual when it comes to the game with your eye test. You trusted the wrong people to tell you this was the player to build around, and you probably only go for name value. In other words, you are the most worthless of owners and orgs in the entire space. Oh, that's right. If you're anyone from those orgs listening who I listed off who signed him, that's you. Have a look in the mirror, that's you. He should only be signed to teams that are borderline playoff teams, because then some of his upside can at least be activated. On a contender, it is a waste of time. So yes, he is an LCS level player, but he's never been paid like a LCS level player. He's been paid like a star in the LCS. So the problem I have is, to justify his position, aside from the residency change, he should only ever have been an average to above average salary player. That would have made it fair. That would have made it worth it. But these stupid owners, this is why it's the Rosetta Stone, they outbid each other for this shit, even though it's essentially a poison chalice to get him on your team.
If you critique TSM, remember, because in their mind, they act as though they're on the team, they start reacting personally. They're offended personally. It's not on the basis of your arguments or they disagree and here's why. If you critique TSM, not necessarily attack or say TSM shit, you just critique them, you give honest, rational discussion about them, you must be jealous, or you secretly hate, or you openly hate TSM. They're reminiscent in this respect of New England Patriot fans. Because, you know, New England Patriot fans have that mentality of like, everyone hates us because we're the best and we win all the time and they're just jealous. No, bro. Everyone hates arrogance, ridiculous homers, and fucking teams that have cheated repeatedly throughout the years, and you consistently deny that they've cheated in any sense, even though it wouldn't affect you personally or the game results, because we can't go back and reverse the cheating at this point. That's what people don't like. The fact that you won all the time isn't why they don't like you. Teams like the fucking Pittsburgh Steelers have won a whole bunch of championships. Well, I won't say the Dallas Cowboys, because they can be pretty obnoxious, and they were essentially the original TSM fans of American football, right? But there's teams that have won many championships that don't have anywhere near this level of abuse given to them. TSM fans talk as if Reggie was their brother, not Dan Din's. Like, everything he does is excused away. They speak as if they know the intimate details of his mind on topics he has never spoken about. And he has become this ridiculous, like, icon within the TSM mythos, this talisman that is the whole reason why all the success happens in the team. Like, we're supposed to pretend like Reggie's such an amazing businessman and human that, like, it's not even that he has Bjergsen, a fucking transcendent NALCS player who's probably season on season, very few instances where he wasn't clearly the best player in the entire NALCS. But we're supposed to pretend like if he hadn't gotten Bjergsen, he'd have just gotten some other mid lane and they'd also had the same success and made every NALCS final and won so many championships. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like, yeah, you know what? I think the guy has done a pretty good job, and I think he's certainly surrounded himself with the right people. I think that's one of his best skills, and he's known when to pull the trigger to get rid of people, and when to stick with someone, and when to get someone who didn't look awesome. Not that often he's done that, but he's done some pretty good moves. But the idea that it's just him who's done it all, and then if we can excuse away all of his behaviour, like, come on, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous. It borders on the way people treat, like, a fucking saint within the Catholic religion.
Here's the full download of what can't be revealed by anyone inside Team Liquid and what can be said publicly, because I'm smart. Y'all don't get to find out who my sources are. Even if you're in Team Liquid, even if you're Steve Arhansett watching this now, you won't figure it out from me saying this, mate. I don't give away the identifying details. I say just enough, and I'll even vaguely make it so it could be 2 or 3 people who maybe it was only 1 or 2, and I'll let you figure it out, mate. You can have the fucking Poirot episode where you get them all in a room and you go, the murderer is inside this room and we will attempt to find them by examining the details of the case. Like, you can go for that if you want, mate. You can have your little Dardoc meetings where you're trying to figure out what the guy's thinking, or you can listen to what I'm saying. Understand this is legit and maybe take the action you need to if you want to save your organisation right now and all those fucking millions you've invested, my dude. So, okay, how about this? And by the way, do you plebs ever stop and wonder how I know all this info, or how I can even speculate about stuff that seems to be legit when I then interview them later, or somehow it seems as though actually like they thought similarly, or they don't disagree with me on a talk show? You never thought that when I do interviews with people, when I do shows with people, when I have them on Twitter and they follow me and I follow them and I can DM them, you don't think they ever tell me even better shit before the show or after the show or in response to something I say in a video or they DM me some info, I ask them what's going on. You don't think that's possible, do they? No. You think, like you, I can only watch the video. I can only do what's on camera. I can only see what they say tweet publicly. I can only see what press statements say. I can only see what they say on stream. Cute. How long you been supporting TSM for on Reddit?
Why should he create that video for free for you? Even if there was no infrastructure aspect. What's the impetus that he must teach you how to play the game and how to improve at the game? Why? He put in his own hard work to learn. Yeah, he learned from other people, but he presumably learned from them because there was a benefit to them, like they liked him as a person, or they respected him as an individual, or they thought he was worth having conversations with. What has you, a random scrub none of us ever met, done that means that you deserve to have Fall and teach you the game for free? Nothing, right? How entitled random shitters are in the world. You can always tell someone, right, who's never accomplished anything, never been involved in the mechanism of making money and creating something, because they always think everyone else's hard work should be done for free and just at their whim, and they should be given everything and they're entitled to everything. But meanwhile, if they were to go to their job and find out they were getting a pay cut of 10%, they'd be complaining all day long. Or if they were to go and they were to pay for a sandwich and they thought like it wasn't as good as it had been build, they'd be going, I paid $10 for that. Suddenly, their time and their efforts and things they consider valuable, like their money given to others, are incredibly valuable. And they don't think that you should just be given whatever and that everyone just is entitled to everything. You can always see that way. Again, it's a comment that says more about the person than it does about what they're commenting on. Complaining all day long. Or if they were to go and they were to pay for a sandwich and they thought, and this guy, 26 points, says KNG carried hard at the major and wants more skill, because that was what someone else had said. He didn't carry anything. And I wish people would stop saying that. Right? First of all, when people say carry like that, they don't literally mean that he carries and everyone else does nothing. They mean that he did the bulk of the heavy labor. That is an understood implicit meaning of that slang saying. It doesn't mean he carried and everyone else was pure shit. No, it means he was the main reason why they did well. Then this guy responds and he says about the rating, etc. Because first guy tries to imply that because the rating was vaguely similar, but it wasn't identical. Like some people had 1.12 and then other people had like 1.03. And he's like, well, similar enough. I don't think you understand. The differences in those 0.1, 0.2 are massive in the game, especially when you talk about over 0.1 difference. But anyway, he's like, it's basically the same. So this guy responds 6 points. Rating tells very little. KNG and Hen 1 picked up all the difficult kills and were often entrying. Carry is probably taking it too far, but he was definitely their most important player. So obviously the latter, what this guy says, absolutely what I agree with. But this idea that like rating tells very little, that's a key point. This guy doesn't get it when he replies. The original guy replies 25 points. Actually, rating 2.0 takes into consideration entry frags, killing sprees, clutches, and a whole lot more than you just said. The whole team was at the same level. Stop overhyping one player. No, because first of all, he's using the fucking rating for all the players in the entire tournament. So he's ignoring who did well in the harder matches, who did well later in the tournament, who did well on particular maps that they don't even play as a team and therefore don't have strong positions. He's taken out all the meaningful context to tell you how well someone played and how important they were for the team. And he is going, oh, since 1.12 isn't that far from 1.09, that means that both players were just as good and nobody played better than anyone. Stop overhyping the other players. How about start fucking learning the game? You haven't addressed a single piece of context in 2 comments of any value, but all the Brazilian fans, of course, have upvoted you. Because no one gets upset, the loser of the one who lost, with when you said their team almost would win, they didn't. Now, what they get really upset with is if you say their team will get smashed, and that is the correct analysis, using all of your understanding of the game and past history and the way you expect it to play out, but then it ends up being a close game. If you said that they'd get smashed, but it would be a close game, first of all, if it's a close game and the team you predicted to win wins, you won't get the credit for it, even though vice versa, it doesn't work like that. And even worse, if you say one team will smash the other and that team gets smashed instead, you will get absolutely dragged over the coals in terms only of public opinion. Again, that doesn't actually affect anything, remember. But that's why people think, right, the way to hedge my bets is just try and essentially give as little of a prediction as I can. Just say it'll be close, it'll be really similar. I hope it'll be a great game. Too hard to tell, but if I had to say, I guess I'd just edge it to this one and do it that way. I mean, one of the craziest predictions I've ever seen in this respect, I don't know why people do it. This is a CSGO particular one, is in CSGO, people will actually say, oh, I think on this map it'll be overtime.
right? I've never heard a compelling reason as to how anyone could predict a map would go to overtime. Because logically, that means you can't pick a winner in regulation over 30 rounds. So then why would you be able to pick a winner over the MR3 or MR5 overtime session? How could you even predict it would go to overtime? That means you think someone will win in overtime. Well, if they would win in overtime, why wouldn't they win in a regular map? Remember, you haven't seen any of the maps, any of the rounds of the map yet. So that's a crazy one where, again, you're trying way too hard to like hedge your bets there. You should just pick a winner in regulation. You can never predict overtime will happen before a map has begun. Monte Cristo picked SK Telecom to win because they were the overwhelming favourite. They should have been. And rather than a majority of the desk pick SK Telecom to win, all of the other members of the desk picked Royal Club to win. And the reason they did it is because they wanted to go against Monty, they wanted it to go against the Koreans, and they wanted to go with the fans who hoped there could be an upset and that Koreans wouldn't dominate and win worlds. That's what they really wanted. And there was a massive cheer when they all said that Royal Club would win. And yet, a bunch of them, behind the scenes and after the fact, I've asked them, and they did admit to me that they actually, of course, they knew SK Telecom would win. Of course, that would have been their real prediction, but they thought for the good of the show, or they thought just to give a fun rise to the fans. Now, I understand there's entertainment involved in this job. Entertainment's great. Sometimes I use entertainment why if I think that a match is going to be a stomp, I don't just say it will be a crushing victory. I say the team that lost is shit, or this one that's is going to smash them in, and I use emphatic, dramatic language. But I never lie and go the other way and just for a joke pretend as though this other one, because to me that's not analysis. At that point in time, you've crossed over from actual analysis into some weird WWE land where a guy who's not even a good wrestler, for the sake of the story, can become the champion, and the good wrestler, he wasn't marketable enough, so he never gets to the top. That's not what esports is. You can have theatrics and showmanship, but it can never take over and supersede the actual analysis and the real part of the game. There's also the aspect, funnily enough, as I used the analogy there, that it's weird that they would even compare themselves to the NFL because they're not even close to the NHL or NBA. In the same sense, what's funny is Western esports, which is bragging like this, doesn't seem to truly understand that it's actually, in certain senses, not even as close to Asian esports and what they've done in the past. So when people brag now like, hey, you know what, we had 10,000 people live watching an esports tournament in the West, look at how far esports has come. Yeah, you know they did that like years and years ago in League of Legends in Korea, right? I went to a League of Legends final that had 10,000 people inside a building. That's more than the majority of all majors in the West have ever had for esports. There were old StarCraft ones that were similar kind of numbers back in like the mid-2000s. Now, yes, other factors aren't as big, but you're the one picking the fucking number here, mate. I'm just showing you what the other facts were. So in some senses, they weren't even as big. If you want to know about how huge numbers can be in esports, Western people who are bragging about whatever ESL, ESWC, what are the other ones they'd probably say about now, LCS, forget those numbers, do a little bit of investigation into LPL, the Chinese League of Legends one. See the kind of numbers they have online, the numbers watching streams, numbers attending their big finals. You'll be blown away. So what's funny is, even within their own sector, sometimes they're not the biggest thing or aren't breaking new ground, even though they tell you they are, because they're always presenting it as esports is growing like this. They're never saying we're growing as our company, or this is the first time we've done something, or this is the first time someone from this part of the world, Europe's done something. It's always that they're always the pioneers breaking new ground for esports, and because they're breaking new ground, it's getting bigger. And look at the difference between our event this year and our event 2 years ago. Look at the difference there, and just assume that will get as much, if not more, in future. Whereas that's also taken for granted entirely. I've been pleasantly surprised during the time I've had my Patreon and my Patreon community, the Skrilluminati, by both the financial support they've provided and the moral support. And so this video was kindly supported and made possible by Starlust, Theo Buenzli, Ahmed Hadjou, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Toucan, Jensen Goh, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Bot Pounder 420, Yurka 86, Tosh, and as always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask a question in one of those AMAs where I tend to go pretty in depth? Sometimes they even spin out into their own videos. Do you want teasers to find out who the upcoming guests are for the myriad of interviews that I do across esports? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest? We have a channel on my Discord where you can do that if you're at the right tier. And of course, you could potentially take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me about whatever is on your mind in the scene. Well, if any of those perks sound tantalizing, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.